Well, can everyone hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent. Alright, I don't really usually do these kind of talks where I hold the microphone and talk to a lot of people, but just bear with me. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is what actually my job is, what exercise physiology is in general, and how that might be beneficial to you, or really anyone. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what exercise can do for your overall well-being and falls prevention, and then we're going to try and do a couple of different activities to see how you might go with moving your body. Okay, so what is exercise physiology? I think most people have heard already about a physio. We're very, very similar. However, I don't like touching people, so all I do is give you exercises. So when you have a condition, when you have an infection, you go to your GP, and what they do, they usually probably give you a prescription for some sort of medication. So it has a specific timing when you might have to take it, how much you have to take it, and how long you take it for. So exercise physiology is exactly that. We use exercise as our medicine. So not everyone will have the exact exercise prescription, because we have to have a look at you as a whole individual person and not just the condition that we have to treat. Because a lot of the times you're probably not going to be living with just one condition affecting you. There's probably going to be some other niggles and issues as well. So we need to take that into account. So exercise physiologists are university trained allied health professionals. We have to do 4 years of university to get to prescribe exercise to people. So hopefully that also makes you feel a little bit more comfortable that this is not just a random person that you're going to. We actually will use research and what we call evidence to give you the exercises. It's not just 3 exercises and throw them together and hope for the best. Okay. Is anyone aware of any sort of chronic health conditions? Any ideas what they might be?
Arthritis.
Yeah, arthritis. Yeah, so that's musculoskeletal. Yeah, anything else? Bursitis. Yeah.
Let's just say aches.
Aches in general of the body. Yeah.
Old age.
Is that a chronic condition?
For a long time.
For a long time.
Joint replacements.
Joint replacements, that can definitely happen after injuries or potentially arthritis where the pain just is way too much to cope on your own. Okay, so we've got a couple of musculoskeletal issues that we talked about. Bursitis, we've got arthritis, it's all nice and rhymed. So any sort of injuries, fractures, that can happen to your body. We can treat that. Then we have cardiovascular. What does that mean? Cardiovascular. What kind of conditions might that be? Heart, okay. What are some very common conditions that can happen with ill heart health? What was it?
Heart attacks.
Heart attacks. Yep.
Angina.
Yep. Strokes. Absolutely. So that was just a couple that we listed, but they can have a massive effect on your life. Life-changing. Do we think that we have any sort of control or input whether that can happen in our lifetime?
We can take better care of it. So it's fitter.
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah. So when it comes to cardiovascular conditions, unless it is completely out of your control, so if it's determined by your genetics, your gender, your age, or your race, everything else we can actually modify and we will have an impact on our direct health. So most of the conditions that we've listed so far, can actually be prevented. Just because, yes, we do age, it does not mean that you have to go through a heart attack, that you have to have high blood pressure, that you have to have clogged up arteries. We can actually change this and prevent it from even happening by engaging in some sort of physical activity. Just moving your body. So when we do age, what happens? What does your life look like as you start aging? What kind of changes might you notice when maybe you retire? Yeah, we slow down a little bit. Yeah. Sorry? Balance is not quite good. Yeah.
Can't get off the floor.
Yeah, getting on and off the floor. Yeah. So we're definitely starting to get into those falls risks here. Okay? So as we age, we've all kind of agreed, yes, we slow down. And we do slow down, and when we do slow down, that means your body is just not exerting itself anymore as much. What happens then? Well then, you might notice that you're starting to feel getting on and off chairs is actually getting quite hard. Maybe reaching up above the head towards the cupboard and reaching something to grab it, that's getting a little bit harder. Because naturally as we age, our muscles, our muscle strength, it just kind of dampens. We actually have muscle wastage as we start to age, which will then lead to you not being able to do any of the things that you might want to do. Whether it's just living independently and not relying on carers or any other support to dress yourself, feed yourself, go to the bathroom yourself, let alone do any other activities that you want to do, like hobbies or shopping or going out to a cafe. So we can actually change that by participating in a little bit of movement. Okay. What kind of exercise have you heard of? Is there any particular types? Walking? Strength training? Swimming, excellent. Golf, yoga, yeah. Excellent. Perfect. That's really, really hard too. So overall, I'm hearing a lot of different types of physical movement and exercise. Now, if we go into the nitty-gritties, we can actually specify different types of movements that we need. So we need aerobic exercise, which means your heart will get a little bit huffy and puffy when you engage in that type of movement, which is your swimming, your walking, aqua aerobics, cycling, dancing, anything like that. As soon as you start to feel a little bit out of breath, that's actually not a bad thing when you exercise. It just means that your body is exerting itself harder and is just trying to keep up and give you the oxygen and everything that your muscles need to maintain that movement. So that's our aerobic training. When it comes to aerobic training, it is recommended to do about 150 minutes of that type of exercise per week. It's a fair bit, isn't it? That's a lot. We can actually break it down into doing 30 minutes of that type of activity per day, 5 days a week. If you go 6 days, it's 22 or something like that. So that's our aerobic exercise, which will help to reduce the risks of you developing high blood pressure, strokes, heart attacks. We can actually do that just by moving your body. The next thing that we also talked about is doing some strength training. Strength training is using either your body weight, gravity, or you can use some external weights or resistance to help to stimulate your muscles and your bones to work against a bit of loading. Why do we need strength training? So we can walk, yeah.
Open a jar.
Opening jars, absolutely. What about carrying your groceries maybe? Yeah. Do you need any strength to dress yourself? Do you have to be able to pull your pants up or take your shirts off?
Control the cocker spaniels.
Exactly. You need to be able to pull them in. Absolutely. All of that is part of your strength training. Why is that important? Well, you've just listed out a whole number of reasons why we need strength. If you don't have some sort of fitness, some sort of ability to exert yourself, it will most likely mean that you will need high support while you are living maybe at home or in a home. Everything that you do will be dependent on other persons potentially doing it for you because we don't have that strength or the fitness to do it for ourselves. So that's part of the reason why it's important to do some movement for yourself. I know it can be quite hard to get into it, but usually after you do a walk or you go out and do a lap around the block or whatever it is, do you ever regret going out and being outside or doing some sort of an activity? So everyone seems to be quite on the same page. You don't really regret that. Do you ever regret not going and doing something? Especially when it comes to our health. It's a tiny little bit that we can do for ourselves that will have a massive impact on your life as we age. And I'm looking across the room, there's a lot of females here in the room. Everyone here is female. When we age, we know from research, there is evidence that we are at a high risk of developing osteoporosis. What does that mean? Your bones will probably be like chalk. What happens if you don't have the strength or the balance? You can have a fall. If you do have a fall, what happens then? Something will definitely happen. Usually it's the hips that go. What does that mean? Where are you going to go from there? Yeah, hospital, okay? When you go to a hospital, that puts you at a high risk of developing infections, other diseases. What does that mean for your overall health? That you're probably not going to come back home really well. Or you might have to go somewhere where they can support and give you better care because you don't have that at home. And I'm sorry if I put this out there that it sounds like I'm trying to scare you, but this is the reality. This happens. People don't go home from hospitals simply because they don't have the support because of their fitness and their ability. They can't care for themselves. But luckily, we know that there are things that we can do to turn that around. And it's literally something just as simple as moving your body 2 to 3 times a week. That's all you need. Now there's a great quote that I put on my fancy presentation that I'm using, is something that really stuck with me ever since I started practicing, is if you don't make time for your wellness, you will be forced to take time for your illness. So when I said 150 minutes of exercise, some sort of movement per week, how big of a chunk of your day is 30 minutes? When it comes to determining as well your health and well-being. There is no pills that can just fix that, unfortunately. If we could prescribe exercise as we do medication, it would be like $1 trillion industry. Any sort of condition nearly that you can think of, whether it's arthritis, osteoporosis, diabetes, cancer, mental health, lower back pain, chronic pain, we can prescribe exercise to help with that. Currently, I am working with a lady that has lived through a stroke. She does not have much use of her right-hand side. She is also in a wheelchair and she has to rely a fair bit on her partner to do a lot of things around home. And for her, that is really frustrating because she wants to be independent. She wants to be able to just stand and do a little bit of cooking. She can't open any jars. She can't stir whatever she's cooking. So when we first started working together, she wasn't in a really bad way, but there was definitely some room for improvement. We've, over the, I don't know, I think it's been a year now that we've been working together, maybe a little bit longer. We've got her standing by herself. She's able to go to the toilet by herself, rather than having to rely on her partner to take her at 2 a.m. That's pretty powerful. Just being able to do that for yourself. So the 30 minutes of your exercise in the one day will most likely mean that you could do something at home, like going to the toilet. And it's not I know it's not something that we would really think about in a day-to-day life, but when that gets taken away from you, you see the impact that it will have on you. And again, I know I'm probably going to be super annoying, but exercise. It is the key to longevity. Now, of course, there's a whole lot of other factors that come in, like, we're on time. So we're good on time? Excellent. Okay, so we talked a lot about exercise, right? That is something that we can change and that can have a massive impact on our health, preventing illnesses or making them better, have a better outcome on our life. Now, there's other aspects that we also need to have a look at. Stuff like your diet, your sleep, the quality of sleep. Are you getting any social time? Are you seeing any people? Are you interacting? Now, this is probably a perfect example of that social interaction, which is something that we do like to, I guess, stress and highlight that it's important, because I read a really interesting number saying that being socially isolated has the exact same effect on your health as having 15 cigarettes a day by being socially isolated. When that happens, your mental health is probably not too good. You probably don't move that much, so you feel even more stiff, even more unable to get in and out of bed, out of chairs. It can be very, very isolating, and it can have detrimental effects on your health. So all of the stuff that we talked about at the beginning, okay? So 15 cigarettes, just being isolated. How can we manage that? Any ideas? Isolation. Perfect, add here, I like it. Yes, join a club. What other social activities are there maybe around the area? What else is there?
Neighbour aids.
What was it?
Neighbour aid.
Neighbour aid. Walking groups, excellent. That ticks off a little bit of movement too, perfect. The gym. Music to my ears. Yeah, but we can also include a little bit of exercise, and we do run classes. There is different classes around the area. Like you said, you do some chair yoga, there's classes at gyms. We run it at our clinic as well, where we prescribe exercises, but a lot of people just like to come around and sing along. We usually like to put some really good music on that everyone will know. There's usually a sing-along happening, everyone has a good chat, a bit of a laugh. You're doing exercise, you're spending some time outside, you're not sitting at home. Big difference. So having a look at what we call social prescription and being social. All right. I think I mostly covered everything. So I think I want to talk now a little bit more specifically about falls. Now we kind of determined that as we age, we're probably going to be at a high risk of having a fall. Now, why do falls happen? What are some factors that will determine and cause a fall? Balance. Prescription, yeah, eyesight. That's 2.
The dog runs between your legs.
Yes. 100%. So not having a very clear path in front of us, definitely. Mats, yes. Yep, environment, shoe wear. Medications. Now, I know that there is a couple of people that I see, they have to take, or they don't have to take, but a cocktail of medications. A lot of the times, you probably don't need as many because they will probably also have some other side effects like causing a little bit of like wooziness and dizziness, okay? They might be interacting with the other medication, which will just make that whole effect even more impactful on you. So your cognition, your vision, just being able to scan for any sort of, I guess, hazards that are in front of you and how to get past them. So knowing, okay, well this looks like a slippery surface. Well, are you actually able to recognize that? Is your eyesight affecting that? Do you have the cognition to make that decision and do the assessment to avoid it or do something about that? So those are some of the factors that will influence whether we might have a fall. Now there's a couple of other ones that we kind of did say earlier on, but that is loss of our strength, especially when it comes to our legs. Now legs have a lot of big muscles, they're very big muscle groups. So if we are not able to utilize our leg muscles and keep ourselves upright and react, you're most likely going to have a fall. So that's a couple of things that will definitely put you at a high risk of having a fall. But how can we change that? What kind of exercise can we do? We can do aerobic training, we can do strength training, and we can also do balance training. So, what I might ask everyone, whoever is happy to participate, I would like you to give a couple of exercises a go, if you are happy. So, the first exercise that we'll try is sitting and then standing up. Just from the chair. You can use your arms to push off, or if you're feeling very spicy today and eventful, you can cross your arms. That will make it a little bit more challenging. So, what I might do is actually demonstrate how to do a very good sit to stand so it's safe. Alright, where everyone can see? here. I'll put this down for a second. I am quite loud naturally, so hopefully you'll still be able to hear me. Whenever we are doing any sort of sitting, we want to make sure, first of all, that we can feel the chair with the back of our legs. Because what does this mean? It means that the chair is right behind us. It's not going to move. We're going to sit down nice and slow. When you're trying to stand up, we're going to be sitting slightly towards the front of the chair. If you try and stand up from when you're backed up all the way, it's going to be very hard for anyone. So what do? We slide just a little bit more forward, about halfway off. We have our knees and ankles in line with our hips. I know as females we're taught to sit like this. Well, it's not very good for our hips or trying to get up. So we're going to keep them in line with the hips. Your toes will be slightly behind your knees, and then you can either use your hands to push off, nose goes over the toes, and then you come up. On the way down, we don't just kind of flop, because the chair can move at any point. And what happens then? We'll probably injure ourselves. And we don't need to do that. It's completely avoidable. So, we press off, and we go nice and slow. You can reach with your hands for the chair. Now, if you're feeling quite confident, you can also have your arms crossed. We're going to stand up, and we're going to sit down counting to 3. So we'll give it a go. Feeling ready? All right, we'll start from standing. We're going to count to 3 to sit down. 1, 2, 3. Very good. We don't want too many flops. And we're going to come up and up. Nose over the toes. Excellent. One more down, nice and slow. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Make sure that you are wiggled out of the chair, and we're going to do one more. I want you to think about pressing your heels into the floor as you try and stand up. You're going to push the floor away. All right, feeling ready? Nose over the toes, heels into the floor. Excellent. That's not too bad, is it? Get your heart going a little bit. You might be feeling a little bit huffy and puffy. Why? Because we use a lot of big muscle groups. These are very big muscles, and they need a lot of oxygen and energy. And what that means is our heart will have to work harder to deliver all of that. So that's one of them, and this is probably the most important exercise that I would prescribe when it comes to preventing falls. This is an activity that you have to be able to do every single day in your life. If you can't do that, how are you else going to get up? What else are you going to do? Exactly, and like we've discussed, that's not very good. Okay, next one. This is kind of going to work a little bit on your balance and also on your lower leg muscles. Now for safety, I'll have everyone to just stand behind the chair, and you can have your hands on. From here, your feet are about hip width apart, not too wide, not too narrow, because the more narrow you are, your stance, your support narrows, and that makes you a lot more easy to wobble. So we're going to have our hands on there, and then we're going to reach up on our tippy toes, and we're going to come back down nice and slow. Reaching up on your tippy toes, and nice and slow. Excellent. Now I'll point out a couple of things that I tend to see quite often is people using their hands to try and use a little bit of momentum or something to try and get them up. Hands are nice and soft. Then we're going to imagine like we're bringing our heel to the back of our knee, and you should feel a nice squeeze going through your calf. And when you're all the way up on your calves, imagine like you're trying to press that calf into the floor as slow as you can. It should feel at this point like it's maybe giving you a bit of a burning sensation, which is quite normal when we exercise the muscles because we're stimulating. So it might feel quite painful to do some exercises, but it doesn't mean that that pain is an injury pain. Actually, doing exercise releases a lot of chemicals. You can have a bit of a rest if you want. It releases a lot of chemicals. You might have heard of endorphins, serotonin, dopamine. They're all the feel-good, happy, boosting chemicals, right? Well, did you know that our endorphin is actually a natural pain reliever? So what does this mean? We can use exercise if you are living with niggles or chronic pain. For arthritic pain, we can do some exercises for it. There is ways to work around it. Okay? Alright, one more. This one will definitely be working on your balance. You can give it a go. Is we're going to have our feet fairly close together. Now, dependent on your comfort and your confidence, I'll show you two different ways of doing this one. First one is a little bit more better support, so less chances of tipping over. Is having one foot forward and then the other foot is kind of halfway next to it. So fairly close, they're touching. One foot is slightly forward and one is slightly back. And now, if you only feel comfortable, hold your hands. Is anyone feeling wobbly? Yeah? Very normal because we put it very, very narrowly now, which means from here, I'm quite sturdy here. When I come here, well, even if I use just my fingertip, if someone pushes me, I'll probably tip. Okay? So this is the type of exercise that is really good to work on to maintain and improve your balance. Alright? If you're ready for the next step up, now this is the harder one. One foot will be right in front and then your toes will be right in line with your heel. A tandem stance. And then still holding on, and then you can just gently hover. This should hopefully feel a little bit more challenging. Okay? So this is, you've probably seen me do a little wobble. I had to use my tummy muscles to keep myself upright. If I didn't have much happening through here, I would have fallen over and rest. So how can we change this? By doing some exercise. Well, thank you all for giving it a go. Thank you very much for listening. What I wanted to throw out there is we also have a little free health check that I'm more than happy to do. Looking at your grip strength, so your upper body strength, looking at your leg strength, blood pressure and heart rate.
I've got an appointment with them.
Well, fair enough, you're ticking off that box for today. But if anyone else is interested and you want to know where your balance is sitting like or what type of exercise might be more of benefit to you, or if you have any particular conditions that you want to know how exercise could be beneficial, I'm here. Let me know. Please, I'm happy to chat.
Thank you.
Thank you.